Remember when you could light up a cigarette on a plane or hop on without showing ID? Believe it or not, these were everyday realities just a few decades ago. We're about to reveal 12 things from the 70s that would make your jaw drop today. Ready for a wild ride back in time? Number 1. Seat belts. Speaking of things kids today wouldn't recognize, let's take a ride back to a time when safety was more of a suggestion than a requirement. Picture this. You're cruising down the highway, wind in your hair, and not a care in the world, including your safety. That's right, we're talking about the days before seat belts were a big deal. Can you believe that in the 1970s, only about 40% of drivers bothered to strap themselves in? It's true. Back then, seat belts were often tucked away, forgotten under the seats, or used as makeshift clotheslines in the back of station wagons. But boy, have times changed. These days, you can't go a mile without your car dinging at you to buckle up. What used to be a personal choice is now the law of the land. And for good reason, those little straps have saved countless lives since they became mandatory. It's wild to think about how different our attitudes were back then. We went from, I'll be fine, to click it or ticket in just a few decades. Today's cars are decked out with airbags, crumple zones, and all sorts of high-tech safety features. But it all started with that simple strap across your lap. Number 2, drive-in theaters. Picture this. It's a warm summer night in 1975. You're in the back of your parents' station wagon, wrapped in blankets, munching on homemade snacks. The speakers hang on your car window, crackling with the movie's dialogue. All around you, families and teenagers are settling in for a double feature under the stars. Drive-ins weren't just about watching movies. They were social hubs where communities came together. Families could enjoy a night out without worrying about noisy kids. Teenagers found the perfect spot for a first date or hanging out with friends. It was a shared experience that brought people closer. But as the years went by, drive-ins began to disappear. Indoor theaters with their massive screens and surround sound systems became more appealing. Later, the rise of home entertainment and streaming services dealt another blow. Suddenly, the idea of sitting in your car to watch a movie seemed outdated. Number 3. Traveling without ID. Back in the groovy 70s, airports were like a different planet. You could waltz right up to your gate without breaking a sweat. No need to arrive hours early or fumble for your driver's license. It was a breeze. But then came September 11, 2001, and everything changed. Suddenly, air travel security became tighter than your bell-bottom jeans. These days, you're showing your ID more times than you can count, from check-in to boarding. Now, we're not saying the old way was better. Sure, it was convenient to just show up and fly, but today's strict measures keep us safer. It's a trade-off between the carefree spirit of the 70s and the cautious approach of the 21st century. Some folks miss those easy breezy days of air travel, while others appreciate the extra security. Either way, it's hard to imagine going back to a time when you could fly incognito. Number 4, indoor smoking. Picture this. You're sitting in a restaurant enjoying your meal. The person next to you lights up a cigarette and the smoke drifts over to your table. But here's the kicker. Nobody bats an eye. It was just part of the ambiance back then. Smoking was everywhere, in offices, on planes, and even in hospitals. But as we learned more about the health risks, things started to change. People began to realize that secondhand smoke was just as dangerous as smoking itself. Suddenly, those carefree puffs didn't seem so innocent anymore. Fast forward to today, and the landscape has completely changed. Smoking bans have swept across the country, clearing the air in public spaces. Now, you'd be hard-pressed to find a place where you can light up indoors. Number 5, hitchhiking. Picture this. You're standing on the side of the road, thumb out, backpack at your feet. Cars zoom by as you wait for a kind soul to stop and offer you a ride. It sounds crazy now, but back in the 70s, this was a totally normal way to get around. Hitchhiking wasn't just about saving money on bus tickets. It was about embracing the unknown, meeting new people, and having stories to tell. The 70s were all about trust and adventure. And hitching a ride with a stranger, that was the epitome of both. But as the years went by, hitchhiking started to lose its charm. News stories about dangerous encounters made people more cautious. Parents warned their kids about the risks of getting into cars with strangers. And let's face it, with the rise of affordable air travel and later ride-sharing apps, thumbing a ride just wasn't as appealing anymore. Number 6, mail order catalogs. Back in the day, these catalogs weren't just paperweight doorstops. They were wish books, filled with dreams and desires. Families would gather round, flipping through pages of clothes, toys, and gadgets. It was like window shopping without leaving your couch. For folks in rural areas, these catalogs were a lifeline to the latest trends and must-have items. No need to drive hours to the nearest department store when Sears or Montgomery Ward could bring it all to you. But as time marched on, so did technology. The rise of the internet changed everything. Suddenly, you could browse thousands of items with a few clicks. No more waiting for the seasonal catalog or dealing with out-of-stock disappointments. Yet there's something special about those old catalogs that online shopping just can't match. The anticipation of their arrival, the feel of the pages, the way you could dog-ear your favorites. It was a more tactile, personal experience. Number 7, payphones. Back in the day, these communication capsules were everywhere. You couldn't walk a block without spotting one of those glass and metal boxes, just waiting for you to drop in a dime and make a call. They were on street corners, in malls, at gas stations. You name it, there was probably a payphone nearby. For folks in the 70s, payphones weren't just conveniences, they were lifelines. No cell phones meant if you were out and about, these booths were your only connection to the outside world. Needed to call for a ride? Payphone. Running late for dinner? Payphone. It was like having a little piece of home on every corner. But then came the cell phone revolution. Suddenly, everyone had a phone in their pocket, and those trusty street corner booths started gathering dust. One by one, they disappeared from our streets, relegated to the pages of history books and old movies. Number 8. Handwritten letters. In the 70s, putting pen to paper was how we kept in touch with faraway friends and family. It wasn't just about sharing news, it was a personal, tactile experience. You'd pour your thoughts onto the page, seal the envelope with a lick, and send your words on a journey across miles. The anticipation was part of the magic. You'd wait days, sometimes weeks, for a reply. When it finally arrived, you'd savor every word, reading and rereading until the paper was worn thin. But then came email, instant messaging, and social media. Suddenly, we could send messages across the globe in seconds. No more trips to the post office, no more waiting by the mailbox. Number 9, vinyl records. Picture this. You're walking into your local record store surrounded by rows and rows of album covers. The air is filled with the sound of needles hitting grooves and the chatter of music lovers. You flip through the stacks, feeling the weight of each record, admiring the artwork. Finally, you find that perfect album you've been saving up for. Back home, you carefully slide the record out of its sleeve, place it on the turntable, and gently lower the needle. That moment of anticipation as you wait for the first notes to play, pure magic. Vinyl wasn't just a way to listen to music, it was the way. Album sales were booming, and every home had a record player. But as technology marched on, vinyl took a backseat. Cassettes, CDs, MP3s, and finally, streaming services changed how we consume music. Number 10, typewriters. These sturdy machines were more than just tools. They were the heartbeat of offices everywhere. Typing wasn't just a skill, it was an art form. One wrong key and you'd be starting that whole page over again. No backspace, no delete, just you, the keys, and a whole lot of correction fluid. But as the 80s rolled in, a quiet revolution began. Computers started appearing on desks, promising a world where mistakes could vanish with a single keystroke. Word processors made editing a breeze, and suddenly, typewriters started gathering dust. The transition wasn't just about technology. It changed how we thought about writing itself. With computers, we could experiment, rearrange, and polish our words without fear of wasting paper or time. It was like going from a bicycle to a sports car. Sure, both get you there, but one does it with a lot more speed and style. Number 11, film development. Back then, taking photos was a leap of faith. You'd snap away at your family vacation or your kid's birthday party, hoping you got at least a few good shots. But you couldn't know for sure until you got those prints back. It was the ultimate exercise in patience and anticipation. The process was simple. You'd finish your roll of film, pop it out of your camera, and take it to the local drugstore or photo lab. Then came the hard part, waiting. For days, you'd wonder, did I blink in that group shot? Did I capture that sunset just right? The suspense was part of the fun. When you finally got your envelope of prints, it was like unwrapping a mystery. You'd gather around, flipping through each photo, reliving memories and laughing at the unexpected moments you'd captured. Fast forward to today, and it's a whole different ballgame. With digital cameras and smartphones, we can see our photos instantly. No more waiting, no more surprises. We can take 100 shots to get the perfect one, delete the duds, and share our favorites with the world in seconds. Number 12, rotary phones. Remember when making a phone call was a physical workout? We're talking about the era of rotary phones, those clunky devices that were the heartbeat of communication in the 1970s. Picture this. You're standing in your avocado green kitchen, finger poised over a circular dial. Each number you need to call requires a full rotation of the dial, accompanied by that iconic clicking sound. It's not just dialing, it's a test of patience and precision. These rotary phones were the standard in most homes back then. No touchscreens, no speed dial, just good old-fashioned finger power. If you messed up a number, you had to hang up and start all over again. Talk about a lesson in accuracy. But as the 80s rolled in, push-button phones started to make their way into homes. Suddenly, dialing was as easy as pressing a few buttons. No more waiting for the dial to spin back. It was a small change that made a big difference in how we communicated. And mobile phones entered the scene, followed by smartphones. Now we carry our entire contact list in our pockets, and making a call is as simple as tapping a name on a screen. Wow, what a trip down memory lane. We've seen how much the world has changed since the groovy 70s. From carefree road trips without seatbelts to puffing away in restaurants, our freedoms sure looked different back then. But it's not just about what we've lost, it's about how we've grown. We've traded some conveniences for safety and some simplicity for technology. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What things do we take for granted today that might shock folks 50 years from now? Maybe our grandkids will be amazed we used to drive our own cars or type on keyboards. What do you think? Share your guesses in the comments below. And hey, if you lived through the 70s, we'd love to hear your stories too.